All right. Well, good evening. I will now call the special planning meeting of the Fayette County Board of Education to order. Pursuant to KRS Chapter 61, notice is hereby given that on May 6, 2020, the chair of the Fayette County Board of Education called a special meeting of the Board of Education for Thursday, May 7, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. The Fayette County Public Schools Board of Education will conduct a virtual meeting on Thursday, May 7th, 2020. I think I'm reading the old. Hold on. I apologize. Let me start over. Pursuant to KRS Chapter 61, notice is hereby given that on. Well, I apologize. I have the outdated on the script. The dates are not correct. So, Tanya, can you tell me what day you sent out the notification, and then I can amend this to today's date?
The special call meeting was sent out Friday.
So that would be June
5th.
All right, thank you. I apologize. I'm going to start this over. Pursuant to KRS Chapter 61, notice is hereby given that on June 5th, 2020, the chair of the Fayette County Board of Education called a special meeting of the Board of Education for Monday, June 8th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. The Fayette County Public Schools Board of Education will conduct a virtual meeting on Monday, June 8, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. This will be a virtual meeting streamed online. The link for the meeting is fcps.net/virtual meeting. This is the board's monthly planning meeting, but is specially called because it will be conducted virtually. Please be advised, in the state of a proclaimed national emergency and under a similar declaration by a governor, it is not currently feasible for the board to provide meeting room conditions in the face of COVID-19, a highly contagious virus that spreads between people who are in close contact with one another within about 6 feet. Under these exceptional circumstances in which the Commonwealth of Kentucky is confronting a worldwide pandemic, while nevertheless needing to accomplish critical public business pursuant to KRS 61.840, the Fayette County Public Schools Board of Education will not provide a primary physical location for public viewing and will proceed pursuant to KRS 61.826 with concessions outlined in the Attorney General's opinion OAG 20-05. Thus, the public can access the media via the live stream but cannot be physically present at the meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Daly to call roll.
Mr. Ray Daniels. Mr. Darrell Love.
Present.
Ms. Christy Morris.
Present.
Mr. Tyler Murphy.
Present.
Ms. Stephanie Spires.
Present.
Thank you.
Our planning meeting is an opportunity to review the agenda for our action meeting later in the month and to allow time for extended presentations and discussions. At this time, I'll turn the agenda over to the superintendent to lead us through our action meeting agenda.
Thank you, Stephanie. Before I go over the agenda for this month, I'd like to add my own welcome to any members of the public who are joining us for tonight's virtual meeting. I also like to look back and then look forward with great optimism. Over the weekend, I looked back at my former high school, as many of you know, I used to be a high school principal, and put myself in the shoes of our current high school principals. And I don't know if I could have been as bold, as creative in making sure our graduates receive an appropriate senior send-off. Everything that they had to endure. And so I do want to congratulate and recognize James McMillan, our chief of high schools, and our high school team, along with Lisa Deffendahl, and the executive leadership team for their sweat equity in helping with the senior send-off event, as well as our high school principals, teachers, staff, and special program schools as well. It really was a testament to how Fayette County comes together, pulls together in order to make sure that our graduates are not only recognized, but greatly appreciated along with their families. And so with the events to highlight their recognition, we did the senior send-off. We've also did the drive-through diploma distribution, which was, really awesome to see. And the staff again and teachers came out, and our school leaders, making that event very special for our seniors. And lastly, we have the virtual commencement that we will be airing this week. We want to inform the public, and we'll do so through a press release and share with our families. But you'll be able to see it on demand and online as well. And I would encourage you to do so. It's something special. At our action meeting on June 22nd, we have a reading of the mission statement led by board member Tyler Murphy, followed by a superintendent's report, during which Chief Operating Officer Myron Thompson will present the monthly construction progress report. If it pleases the board, I would ask that we take one item on the agenda out of order. Each summer, as you know, our General Counsel, Shelley Chatfield, works with the Kentucky School Boards Association to update our school district policies. Tonight is the first reading for those policies, and we have Katrina Kinman, Director of the Kentucky State Board Association Policy and Procedures and the Electronic School Board e-meeting services, as a special guest to review the proposed changes with us this evening. I would like to ask that we allow Katrina to go over the policies at the beginning of the agenda, if that pleases the board.
I don't think we actually need an official motion for this. We just need everybody to say okay.
Yeah, cool. We're not taking action on it tonight, right? It's just informational. So yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with the change.
It works.
Thank you, board. I will turn it over to Katrina Shelley as the next agenda item for tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Colick, members of the board. Thank you very much. The legislature was very busy, as you know, this session, which means we have a lot of policy and procedure changes. As the superintendent noted, the policies, this is considered the first reading for the policies. They require 2 readings, so we will ask that you vote on them next time. So make note of any questions you have. If you have any questions for Katrina, she's really good at answering what statutes they relate to and why, they had to be changed. And as for the procedures, which I believe she is going to go through secondly, those are for informational purposes only. So this is the first and final reading for them. But of course, we always take your input if you have any questions about that. So I just want to thank Katrina Kinman for, coming in as a part of our meeting and doing this with us. KSBA is one of our strongest partnerships, and they've been nothing but supportive, and especially during this strange time of the pandemic. So Katrina, I'm going to ask you to take it away.
All right, thank you, Shelley. I believe the policies start on about page 121 in the packet that you have. I'll just go over them, high level, unless you have questions, and then feel free to ask as we go through. So we're going to start with the in-service training, policy 01.83. Senate Bill 158 amended the statute to allow that charter authorizer training won't be required of any board member until a charter application is actually submitted to the board. So that removes your 12 hours of charter school training that you had to have prior. And now, if you get a charter school application, you're only required to have 6 hours of training once that application comes. You don't have to have all that extra training until you actually get a charter application. Senate Bill 8 built on last year's Senate Bill 1, the school safety bill, where we created the school resource officers policies. It made slight definition amendment to what an SRO was. It's whose primary job function is to work with youth at a school site. And it also added the requirement that an SRO wear a firearm. And so that is notwithstanding any local policy or school council policy or MOA. So each SRO shall be armed with a firearm. And the hiring policies, it's certified policies start with 03.1, and the related classified policy will start with 03.2. These policies have been in update for 5 years in a row now regarding criminal background checks and child abuse or neglect checks, which they call the CAN check or letter from the cabinet. And basically, it just changed the definition of substantiated finding to has no administrative findings of child abuse or neglect. So that will, financial implication there is going to be the cost of reprinting applications. And then it went in to detail and defined what that actually is now. So hiring, let's see, it's salaries. This change is from Senate Bill 174, and it amends the statute to provide that teachers who obtain their NBCT certification after July 1, 2020 will get an amount that the General Assembly has appropriated. And if that amount is not $2,000, then the board may add to that supplement to get to the $2,000. Any teacher that obtained their NBCT prior to July 1, 2020 still gets the $2,000 for the life of the certificate. So, but that's a change where the board can match up to an amount. Say if the General Assembly only gave $1,000, then the board could choose to put in the other $1,000 to get to equal to the 2,000.
May I interrupt you just for a question on that? Is there, I mean, because the board, and some districts do, the board can go beyond what the state does anyway. So is there...
Not in this particular case. It caps it at $2,000.
Okay, so that's what my question is. Does this language then bind us?
No, it's a may. The board may.
Okay. So the change in the statute was, what was the specific change in the statute?
That the General Assembly will choose the amount that they're going to provide to pay for the certificate.
Okay.
And
versus
so
right now,
if they choose not to go up to $2,000, the board may make up that difference.
Okay. Would this policy prevent us from maybe saying national board gets a $2,500 stipend?
That's my understanding, that it's capped at $2,000 in the statute now.
Okay.
So, Katrina,
yes.
The change here was the prior language. Was it always provided at a $2,000 level, and now the General Assembly is now giving them some wiggle room in case funding is not available?
That's my
they could reduce that amount, and then now they put more of the onus back on the district, correct?
Right. And so they're saying, they're grandfathering in the teachers that got it prior to July 1, and then going forward, then that amount can be less than $2,000, or the board can make it up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Assignment 03.131 and 03231. In 2019, Senate Bill 15 just removed old language that was Kira language. If the principal of the spouse was already hired in the school, then they could be grandfathered in. The nepotism law still applies. It just removed this exception because you probably aren't going to have a principal who was the principal in 1990 whose spouse would still be working there from 1990. So it was a cleanup just to remove the language, but the anti-nepotism laws are still into effect. It just removed this language from the statute. Professional development for both certified and classified staff. Senate Bill 8, once again, building on school safety, changes the active shooter training requirement to state that it is actually going to be prepared by the Kentucky Department of Criminal Justice Training in collaboration with these other agencies. I think there was a little confusion last year about who was going to provide that training. This is the classified version. I'm sorry, my computer's slow to scroll through here. And then there was a change in January, effective January of this year. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations provide that a CDL holder has to consent to give information to go into a mandatory query of the Federal Electronic Clearinghouse. So it's a repository of all CDL licensing. So, for instance, if you hired a bus driver from another state and you didn't know that they had driving violations that would cause a problem and let them not be hired, or drug or alcohol results. So now all of that is collected in one place, and the district has to provide notice to the employees of it, and they have to get consent from the employee to do this annual record check. So under this policy for discipline, suspension, and dismissal of classified employees, we simply added to the part where if they lost their certification or licensure, or they can be disciplined for failure to provide the cooperation or the consent necessary to serve or continue serving in the position required. And then they have to get that consent regarding the clearinghouse. Classified version. Substitute teachers, the same bill, Senate Bill 79, that replaced substantiated finding of child abuse or neglect with administrative finding. We just put the same language and made it more closely match the two hiring policies.
May I ask another question? I'm sorry, I keep asking.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
On the substitute teachers, I'm on page number 147. There was a change in language that said services provided by the individual, documenting that the individual does not have administrative findings.
That's correct.
So I'm just double checking the languages. The background check, it says including a letter from the cabinet provided by the individual. So is the onus on the applicant to obtain that letter? Is that how the process works?
It is.
Okay.
And for the not only a substitute teacher, but for the hiring policies too. It's so we just made this more closely match that language. But yes, the onus is on the applicant to get that background check.
Is there any fee associated with that?
There's a fee.
I believe it's 10. Is it $10?
Yes, ma'am. It's $10 for the can check. And it is electronic now, where they have to log on and register. And this so we've just changed our communication process. We can no longer do it for them or on their behalf and have them send it and get their report back. The cabinet has changed their process where it's electronic. So we will have to assist some of our folks in signing on and getting a username and a password and all of those type of things to register to receive that. So we're on it.
Okay, I appreciate it. No, thank you. You know where I'm going with that line of questions, so I appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, Chapter 4, Budget Planning and Adoption. The budget bill is only for 1 year, and it includes an exception for a working budget with a minimum reserve of less than 2% that expires June 30th. So we just, the 2018 budget bill had the same language, but it was for 2 years. Excuse me, since this is only for a 1 year budget, we had to make that change in this policy. There were a lot of changes to the Red Book, which is Procedures for Kentucky School Activity Funds, or accounting procedures. And that was updated and went into effect in August, although the reg didn't actually go into effect until November. But basically, it makes several definitions. It defines what a school activity fund is. It defines what district activity funds are. The board at the end of the year is supposed to get a list of all the donations provided to the board. And so if the board wants a certain amount of gifts that are valued over in policy 04.61, we just cross-reference that policy. And let's see, donations valued at $250 or more required a donation acceptance form. And so these are just changes in the Red Book itself. The other thing that it explicitly pointed out was that the booster group is responsible for ensuring that their group is in compliance with district policies and their guidelines in the Red Book and state and federal regulation, and that there can be no fees or charges assessed to students or parents now, with the exception of PTA membership dues. Other than that, boosters cannot charge any fees to families. And another thing that it pointed out was that the external groups can't reimburse district employees for personal booster club purchases. So if you're a member of the booster club and you're an employee of the district and you volunteer to buy the hot dogs, you're not going to get reimbursed. You have to use actually the booster club funds to purchase the hot dogs or hot dog buns. So. Okay, school safety, once again, Senate Bill 8. It removes the requirement that the district school safety coordinator be a district level school administrator. It can just be anyone that the superintendent appoints. And then it also made an exception to controlling access to classrooms. Senate Bill 1 last year said that all of these practices have to be in place by July 1, 2022. And it's controlling access, classroom doors are to remain locked during the instructional time, except this is the exception that was put in this year in instances where there's only one student and one adult in the classroom, or if approved in writing by the state school security marshal. Roll is not working very fast. Let's see. Add the firearm requirement for school resource officers, so we put that exception in the weapons policy. And added the Federal Motor Clearinghouse language in the bus driver's use of tobacco, drugs, and alcohol. Gave them the notification about that information. And when we get to procedures, there'll be a related procedure on that. Legal House Bill 458 repeals the current statute for home hospital instruction and creates a new one, and the department is going to have to write regs for it. But basically it just defines that for purposes of SEEK funding, a student who receives home hospital instruction for a minimum of 2 instructional sessions, it'll be equal to the equivalent of the student attending for 5 days in school. It's my understanding from Eric Kennedy, this kind of just cleaned up the way things actually work in the real world. One other, in 08.4, Senate Bill 63 allows a district to have virtual high school completion programs for students that have dropped out and over 21 years of age. This is a may, so we just put the board may establish the high school completion program consistent with KRS 158-100. It's nothing that you have to do. Admissions and attendance, 09.12. It amends KRS 158-140 relating to children in foster care. Basically what this does, and this was our big bill that we really pushed for, was to provide that all of the agencies that work with that foster child, whether it be the district, the cabinet, the child care facility, the former school, the new school, the foster parent, they all collaborate together to make sure that the student is receiving services. So once they are enrolled, the new school is supposed to give the records immediately by the end of that working day. And if they're not complete, then they have 3 days to get all of the rest of the records over there. And then the child state agency caseworker is supposed to either go with the child to get them enrolled in the school or make a phone call that day, but it's to collaborate and to help, make sure that the students are receiving the type of services that they need. Because oftentimes it's my understanding the foster parent doesn't even know if the child may have an IEP or a 504 plan. So
I want to interject here because I actually had the opportunity to testify both before the House and the Senate on this, both committees back and advocate for this. But as a foster parent, this is absolutely a needed change and is something I'm excited about. I have told many stories over the years of kids that have come into my home, and we put them in, like, especially with the middle school and the high schoolers, I put them in the classes I think they should be in, and then I find out that really they should be in a higher level or a lower level, and it sets them up for failure. And I tell people, I've had kids come into my house. I had one child come to my house who thought he was a whole year older. Imagine telling a 15-year-old that he's only 14 once you actually get the paperwork together. And so this is just huge, and this is a big change, and I think it's really a great thing that we took the lead on it too as the school districts, and really said, because a lot of people were surprised this came out of KSBA and came out of it. But I think, we recognize the unintended consequences and the user, just the issues too. Like we talk about, some school districts start back in early August. Well, if a child was moving from a school district that wasn't open at the time, they weren't getting that paperwork maybe until that school district opened back up. And so I really just like the way this has been set up to have everybody talking together. And it was a privilege to advocate for it, and I'm excited that it's here to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Students of military families, House Bill 266 amends the statute to include parents or guardians who are transferring it within 1 year of being separated from the military. Basically, a home under contract to be built is something that the district can accept. So, for instance, they may be enrolling in your school district, but maybe living in Scott County right now in an apartment because their house is being built. So the district would be required to take the student under those circumstances. And let's see. Student fees, the Red Book also addresses student fees, and that they have to be taking for account in the school activity fund bank account. Student health and safety policy 0922, Senate Bill 8 amended the statute to change the suicide prevention training from every other year to every year. And then a separate bill addressed this policy as well. Senate Bill 42 created a section that states that if a district provides student identification badges, then if they have those badges, then the student has, for the student on the back of the badge, has to be the contact information for domestic violence hotline, sexual assault hotline, and the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So it doesn't require badges, but if you provide badges, you have to do that.
And I know I mentioned this before, but I will say it again, that was actually a student-generated idea that became a piece of legislation that was passed. So it was a KYA bill introduced by some of our Commonwealth students, and then it became, and here it is in board policies across the state.
Yep. Employee reports of criminal activity and child abuse reporting. Senate Bill 72 amended the child abuse reporting statute to include a victim of female genital mutilation to the required reporting. So that affected 2 policies and 1 procedure. And I think I'm about there. Fundraising activities was also addressed in the Red Book, and it actually defined what those are. And once again, over in this policy, talks about the support or booster organization wishing to be recognized by or affiliated with the district have to conduct their fundraising activities to benefit the entire group and not permit credit to be earned through fundraising for an individual student, and then no fees or charges to be assessed. And this was a district requested draft school budget and purchasing. So your Section 6 funds managed by the school but not expended by the end of the fiscal year that are over 15% of the previous year's allocation shall revert to the district general fund. Personal leave. This is just a cleanup of what an actual district practice is. That personal leave, it said in the policy for classified personnel that it had to be taken in whole or half-day increments, and that's actually not the practice. So that's just to clean that up. And that was the end of policy. So unless you have questions about other policy, I'm going to move on to procedures and try to be a little quicker if I can scroll faster. Board.
I'm sorry. On the personal leave piece, they can still take it's just a pro rata part of their leave, right? So it's just saying it's not either half or whole day. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. It's just to match what the district practice currently is and what we've put on that leave form for them. So it's just cleaning up it was a cleanup basically from working on that leave form.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Board vacancy form 01.3 AP2, and then the next one, AP21, basically removes, these are letters that can go to the newspaper announcing the vacancy, so on and so forth. And one of them is a letter that the vacancy's been filled. This information comes to us. It's important for us to get email addresses quickly so that we can get new board members in and start getting their training information to them. And then clarifies the charter training. The next one is to apply for a board vacancy. Just to clarify that we weren't asking about a city or county board, we meant the school district where you reside, presently employ you, and then adds the clarifies that it's not a 4-year appointment. It's during the service on the board that they're asking the question about, and then adds in that this application constitutes my letter of intent to seek appointment to the board. The way it was worded in the statute. So that just clarified that a little bit. This is just paperwork, checklist, and clearing up the language. It's administrative finding instead of substantiated. District training requirements. This is a procedure that the district can use to track what training is required. And we changed the suicide training in it. We talked about the personnel actions and record of driving violations for bus drivers. And so we put the information about the motor carrier information up here, and then just made this at the bottom more closely mirror the regulation language.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you tell me what page you're on at this point?
Yes, just popped down to 212.
Okay, thank you.
This is the drug and alcohol testing notification and general consent for the federal clearinghouse, and the employee signs off on this. And related policy is 03.27, which is the classified employee discipline policy. And we added that to an existing procedure that you all already had in place, which I'm trying to get scrolling through here. This is a long one, just a minute. We're about done. Procedure 0914 AP 232. This relates back to the foster care bill. And basically it's a form for the cabinet member or someone who's working on behalf of the cabinet to fill out to get the records, and that basically they won't share them unless authorized by law or with those that have a legitimate educational interest. So this was an existing form that we just had to update to count these other agencies who would be working with the cabinet. One last Red Book change. You all have a Booster Club agreement form. And so we spelled out that in that there's no dues or fees or charges to be assessed. And last year's Senate Bill 1, I'm on 09425 AP 22, assaults and threats of violence. Notice of penalties and provisions. Last year's Senate Bill 1 required the principal within the first 10 instructional days of the school year to provide this to students to let them know what terroristic threatening is and that it's a felony and what the consequences could be. And so Senate Bill 8 changed the definition of terroristic threatening a little bit and just gave we included a better description of the criminal and juvenile penalties there on page 2.
And just for your information, members of the board, we do that by putting it in the code of conduct, which all of our schools go through and review with the students within the first 10 days. So that's part of that training, just so you know.
The next couple are just your public records notice and request examine or copy district records. Makes it clear that they are to be done through email Yes, ma'am. That email needs to come off. Well, no, that's correct. Sorry. Anyway, it just cleans up that process.
Looking at this, it removes email as an option for request. Is that
correct?
Correct. Is that the SBA recommendation or?
That's a district choice. It was my understanding when we drafted this language last year, the statute changed that said the public agency may, and so we had just put may, and so
it's in line with the district practice,
right?
So yeah, the statute says you can do it. This what the district can decide. The practice of the district is always hand delivery, U.S. mail or fax. So it just aligns with that. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I would, and again, this is a procedure, and I know that the board can't. The board only advises. I think something that we need to look at, because I know Jefferson County takes them via email, and I understand the interpretation of statute. But the more transparent we can be, the better. And if we can think about ways to, and I understand the concerns about taking email requests, but if we can look at what some other districts have done, just to make that process a little more streamlined on as a procedure of requesting open records, not just sticking to mail or fax, but finding a way, an avenue for folks to submit requests electronically, I think would be a step in the right direction.
Okay, the next one is a district request for your magnet and gifted and talented allocations. So we created that, which adds IB. And the next one is just related to the substantiated and administrative funding again. And we're almost done. Student fee procedures. This was a district request that the district shall cover dual credit fees for up to 8 classes over a 2-year period instead of 4 classes, and defines that as the junior and senior year. And then this is just the public records notice that updates the mailing address versus the physical address. And that's it for me, although I will answer questions if you have when you get down to the next thing, John White's employee leave policy updates. If you have any questions on that, or
do you all have any questions over any of the policies and procedures she just went through?
I do not.
Okay. Superintendent Cock, are you planning to take John White's policies out of order too and present them now?
Yeah, so then they're
Okay.
part and parcel of the policies Katrina just shared. So
I just wanted to make sure.
Board will do that as well.
Okay.
So it's consistent.
Yes, and members of the board, this is separate because we're kind of presenting them separately. I think you'll vote on them separately because these are going to be retroactive, is my understanding, but I'm gonna let John White talk about that a little bit because it's coming out of benefits. So John, you want to talk to them a little bit about the policy change?
Sure. These, as you, Shelley, just stated, these are different than the policies that you just heard from Katrina, that these are a couple of policy changes that we're asking to be effective for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020, the year we're currently in, versus fiscal year ending June 30, 2021, which is what Katrina just went through. But these policy changes reflect a request of you to approve a change in leave policy as it relates to vacation carryover. Policy 03122, which for certified personnel, 03222 for classified, and then 03.123AP.2, which is the actual revision of the leave form to reflect these changes. But the request is to increase the number of vacation days carried over from 18 at June 30 to 30 days carryover. Reason for that, be more competitive with other counties around us, to enhance our benefits package, enhance our recruiting tool. And one of the things that we ran into is with all the additional workload and everything with COVID that has come up and restrictions on travel, employees have not been able to take the vacations that they normally would have. And so basically not increasing these would cause a mass rush for several people to be out a lot of July, which could more than likely would influence our services and our ability to deliver and operate effectively for that particular month. So this is the first read, and that's a little bit of the background.
And it's really about treating professionals like professionals.
And I think, John, too, you mentioned to me, at least when we were talking about the legalities of it, that you all had spoken to some other neighboring districts and kind of surveyed across the state to see what other districts were doing and see, to see if we were in line or an outlier. So this was more in line, is my understanding. Is that correct? Although there was an array, I believe.
That is correct. We did canvass several districts across the state. The range of carryover went from anywhere from 0 to 60, with the more common number being 40. So even our 30-day is still less than what several districts across the state, much smaller than us, offer and allow employees to carry over.
And I didn't know if Rodney wanted to weigh in. I saw him.
Rodney,
did you want to add too?
Yes. Basically, as I said, we contacted several districts throughout the state related to this and found out that several of them have policies in place for this, and ours was on the lower end. As John said, 0 to 60. Actually, one district had unlimited carry forward.
What district is that? I'm joking. Go ahead.
I'll have to go back and look, but there was one who had that. And related to the process, as 18, it was always an administrative nightmare for the payroll department for 1 month of July, trying to get the accruals back in order and allowing people to carry forward and move backwards. So as Manny said, treating them like professionals and offering better services, and with everything related to COVID-19 that was causing, I'm getting emails daily, people asking, what can I do? How can I use these days? Well, I gotta be prepared for school district and so forth. So there's several different reasons, but it is a good move for the district overall.
All right. Board Member Murphy, I think you had a question.
Yeah, what impact would this have if we're talking about like retirements? Is this going to be, because if they can carry over 30 days, then in theory, if they can retire with additional vacation time that they cash in, does that have any impact in terms of retirement or how we have to factor that in?
Yes, we looked into that also. Based on the current policy, if we left it alone, if you have 18 days that you're allowed to carry forward and you didn't take a single day the entire year, you have 33 days, and that would be the payout as of June 30th. But on July 1st, you would lose those days, anything above that. So if you retired August 1st versus June 30th, you would lose those days. It's ebbs and flows. It goes up and down when people retire, but most people retire on June 30th when it comes into effect. So it's normally about $2,000 to $3,000 a person, depending on the situation. But the fiscal impact will not be much different that I'm estimating based on what we have right now, people's leave.
Okay.
We wouldn't feel all that in 1 year. That's going to be spread out over time, and we really don't know the true impact until the year that they actually retire into the future.
And then the attached procedure, is this this leave form, do we currently use that? Is it, because I know we use it in Boyle County, but I didn't know if this is the same form that we use here currently, or would this be?
Yeah, no, that's the same one. The only change is to increase the number of vacation days from 18 to 30. I'm scrolling through that right now to find that line. I believe it is on, I did see that. It's the same form that we have intact. The only thing we're changing is the number of carryover days.
It's the first page, or the top of 249, of page 249.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at yes.
And John and Katrina, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was a district created form, wasn't it? Didn't we create it last year?
Yes.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It is a district form, but it contains a lot of the components of our model form.
Okay. I remember working on it. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes.
As it should.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for Katrina before we let her go? Because I know she really wants to stay for this whole board meeting, but she's a very busy person.
Great job as always, Katrina. Appreciate your labor.
Thank you, partner, as always.
Katrina.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John or Rodney? So, Madam Chair, for please the board, I'll continue with the rest of the agenda. All right. So again, thank you, John. Thank you, Rodney. Next on the agenda for the action meeting will be our consent items. Our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. John White, and Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Myron Thompson, are available if you have any questions about the awards of bids or proposals. Hearing no questions, there's a placeholder for post approval that Finance Director Rodney Jackson will present at the action meeting on the 22nd. Hearing no questions, Finance Director Rodney Jackson can also respond to any questions about the special and other leave of absence and professional leave by district personnel.
We had one on there from January 2020, a leave request. Is that, why is that just now coming to us from?
When they turn in a reimbursement form, then it's noted that it did not come forward to the board before, and so we reimburse until we make sure that it's approved. So
Okay.
we got a post approval.
Okay, yeah, that's not it.
Once in a while that happens, not very often, but.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, great question. Next, we have 12 construction-related consent agenda items. Our Chief Operating Officer, Myron Thompson, is available if there are any questions. Hearing no questions, I'll continue to proceed through the agenda. Next on tonight's agenda, we have several items for your consideration and action this evening. The first is the Certified Evaluation Plan. We're seeking your approval of our Certified Evaluation Plan for the 2020-2021 school year. The process for developing this plan is laid out in statute and provides for extensive input and discussion. At this time, I'd like to invite our Human Resources Director, Ms. Jennifer Dyer, to share with you the changes we are proposing.
Absolutely. There's not a whole lot this year. There was some cleanup that we needed to do in the plan. We have a fantastic 50-50 committee that shares everything that we go over. Jessica Heiler should be on. There's Jessica.
I'm here.
Jessica Heiler is one of our 50-50 committee members. So Jessica, jump in and share anything you'd like, but it is an awesome group. Actually, so there's several other people around this group as well that are part of that fantastic committee. This was, you can see the changes in there. We had a update list of actually this is on page 43 in the agenda if you want to follow along. So it's on 43 of the full agenda. We updated the committee members each year as they roll off. And then we added some terminology and definitions in pages 5 through 6. We wanted to make sure and clarify. This committee was so forward thinking that we already had things in place that were really advantageous to what we have just gone through, such as video observations, and that the pre-conferences could be electronic, and that the face-to-face, we wanted to make sure that it also had clarifying language that face-to-face could be a virtual face-to-face, like a Skype, one of those things. So just a little bit of language change. Clarify a little bit of language around late hire, leave of absence, multiple measures of student learning, NTI, we added that as a definition in our certified evaluation plan for the first time. The PESEL standards, we were required by KDE to move into the PESEL standards for leadership. And so we have added those professional standards of educational leadership in our administrative section. So we add that as definition. And then virtual learning. Again, we had some pieces in there, but we want to make sure this plan is completely transparent. So we just added those definitions for clarity. There was multiple measures of student learning was moved to the required evidence. It was always a part of it, but it had been under optional, and it kind of gave a mixed message. So we made sure that we moved that for all categories, that multiple measures of student learning is something that is required. And then we replaced the former PESEL standards, the previous Strong standards, Robert Strong's standards to the PESEL standards. So those were really the only changes. Jessica, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. I think you went over it pretty well. Yeah. I think we have a good committee. A lot of great folks the conversations aren't always easy, but I think we do. I think we do well.
I just want to commend our 50-50 committee for their due diligence and continue to improve upon our certified evaluation plan. And we know we're looking forward with the PESEL standards. Everything always changes. But the committee always seeks to do the right thing. So open up any questions or comments from the board at this time.
Honestly, I think it looks good as an educator, and including multiple measures of student learning. I also like that terminology as well, because it's sometimes you'll see on their student assessment data, but leaving it open to multiple measures, I think that's good as well.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest conversation that we had that lasted over multiple meetings. Was how to make that work. So I think it worked out well.
Or any other questions or comments from the board? I want to say thank you, Jessica. Good seeing you, partner.
Seeing you too.
All right, he's still working on his jump shot.
Yes, he is.
And thank you, Jennifer. All right, as we continue, I think there's Stephanie. I turn over to you, partner.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there are no further questions or recommendations, in order to approve the certified evaluation plan for the 2020-21 school year.
I'll make the motion to approve the certified evaluation plan.
So we have a motion by Mr. Murphy.
A second.
Second by Mr. Love. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you, board. The next item for your consideration is the post-approval of a request for professional leave that has already taken place, excuse me. Again, our Human Resource Director, Jennifer Dyer, is here and can answer any questions you may have.
I'm sorry, I asked the previous question too soon. I asked it in the wrong spot. So, but my question's already been answered. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve the post-approve the leave request.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Murphy to approve the leave request as indicated.
I'll second.
And I have a second by Mrs. Morris. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, board. Next, we're seeking your approval on a contract with Discovery Education to provide professional development for STEM teachers. Our Chief Academic Officer, Kate McNally, is available if you have any questions and can give you some background. And also, please note that the professional learning can be done virtually as well, considering the state and times that we're in.
And that was going to be one of my questions, Superintendent Calk. In addition to the PD, when we look at the leader retreat, the launch event, and the family night, what would those things look like in a virtual setting?
I'll let Sharana share about the SLI and about our conferences that we hold, whether it's student support service, etc. Our conferences for our teachers, they're all virtual. It's very much like this format. We're bringing a speaker that will engage our leaders virtually for a smaller duration of time, not as long as our planning meeting. And Sharana's here. You want to pick up? I can keep going because I'm excited.
Well, you keep going if you want. You've done a good job.
Okay, so we'll engage them. We'll have activities, etc., that they could do, maybe some pre-reading, post-reading, a presentation, if you will. But we also try to follow up with sort of that new learning. Just another way for our school leaders, our teachers and staff to learn. I think for our digital natives, in terms of our younger teachers, they're more familiar with this format of learning. And I think because of the pandemic, we're all getting very much used to virtual meetings and learning in more of a virtual space as well, as you very well know yourself.
Is this, because the reason I ask is I know they're on there, I'm looking on page 75, because we have, would that affect the cost? Because right now they're charging us $6,000 for the leader retreat, the launch event, and then $6,500 for family night. So if we do those virtually, would that lower our cost?
That's a great question. That's it. Kate?
Yeah. So I did ask that same question. And at this time, that is the price for the leader of the retreat, the launch event, and the family night.
So even if that has to shift virtually, it'll be the same.
They are hoping to push those back into the school year.
Okay.
They would rather have it as a face-to-face event.
Okay.
Those that you mentioned are board funded. The actual PD is out of Title II funds.
Okay. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that training is going to be online. It also virtually, and it also will be recorded, Board Member Murphy, in case some of the staff members are not available at that time. They can participate at a later date and engage in it.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you.
And their work will also directly support our K-8 Girl STEM program as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if we have any additional questions for the staff at this time? If there are no further questions, the recommendation is in order to approve the contract for services from Discovery Education.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Discovery Education.
Thank you, Mrs. And a second by Mr. Love. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Board. Next, we're seeking your approval on a resolution relating to financing the construction of a new building for Tate Creek High School located at 1111 Center Parkway. Chief Financial Officer John White's available if you have any questions.
If there are no further questions, the recommendation is in order to approve the resolution relating to the financing of the new construction of Tates Creek High School located at 1111 Center Parkway.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the resolution relating to the financing of the new construction at Tate Creek High School located at 1111 Center Parkway.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Levin, a second by Mrs. Morris. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Board. The next 4 items on our agenda are related to board facilities, which fall in Chief Operating Officer Myron Thompson's shop. First, we're seeking your approval on a contract for portables at Winburn Middle School. And I'm going to, say this as we continue to move forward and balancing or rebalancing enrollment and shifting. We need to reduce the enrollment at Winburn. But right now, we're looking to add portables.
Will the new, I know we don't know, but I assume the new construction will shift it. We'll have to do a redistricting for that. Are you wanting us to maybe do this ahead of this? Is that what you're?
Oh, Madam Chair, I'm gonna let Myron share with you. I think I would move at a sort of faster pace, I think,
okay.
to reduce the enrollment, if you will. Prior to, I guess, if you're referring to the construction of the middle school,
mm-hmm.
Yes, I would think we would act sooner than that. That would be my advice to the board.
Before the upcoming school year, or?
Oh, no, sir. No, sir.
Oh.
We'll do the portables this year, but
okay.
I think, Board Member Murphy, to your point, we would study the enrollment. Obviously,
okay.
this upcoming school year is going to look a little different because of the pandemic. We'll have probably some intermittent school closures, etc. But I think we'll be able to study and see, for students who are falling farther behind and, trying to serve that population, the whole child, and the resources that are expended, it's better to do that in a smaller student body or student enrollment.
Yes.
Certainly, Superintendent, thank you for clarifying that time frame. Tyler, you get ready to throw people into a panic.
No, it's a great question, because I think I may have thrown him into a panic, and he's helping me get out the panic.
Well, and that was going to be what I was going to say to your point, is that one advantage of the portables is it allows us to get smaller class sizes. Yeah, it's not ideal being in portables, but we need to look at class sizes.
Well, and let me just say this too, and I'm not a big proponent of portables because I think, one, you have the cost that's associated with it, and then two, for a matter of safety, I think as much as possible as we can keep people inside a building kind of contained, it's a little bit better than having our students sometimes go out to the portables. So I know sometimes we've had certain cases that we've had to utilize that, but I'm always a proponent if we can kind of maybe reshift a little bit. And that's something we're going to have to do. I think it's, as we kind of go through, and, I think one of the challenges of the board is you think about the years ahead. When you think about the utilization of some of our spaces, also thinking about the whole, I think the whole constraints and the whole desire to have people attend schools closest in their neighborhood, that really is a tall order. But I think when you look at some buildings utilization, it's at 68% and one's at 110. How do you make sure that you're good stewards of the resources and allocations, et cetera? So it's just one of those, I think we've always had that challenge of the balance within, again, trying to make sure that we're utilizing our spaces appropriately and not having to kind of have these bulge of a building through portables.
And I will just add that at Winburn, with the gifted program there and then the additional resources that we are providing through the safety investment plan, it makes utilizing that building very difficult at times. And so when we met with school leadership this past year, this was the short-term solution that we were wanting to put in place, knowing that hopefully as this land deal gets purchased on Polo Club and we build the new middle school, that's the long-term. But rest assured, Manny had a conversation with me at that time saying that we have to look at Winburn's enrollment and try to get that number down at some point. So I think there will be both a short-term and a long-term plan.
Intermediate.
Yes, sir. But not this school year.
Not this school year. We'll study it.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, the recommendation is in order to approve the contract for Winburn portable classrooms for 2020.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the contract for the Winburn portable classrooms for 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Love. We have a motion by Mr. Love and a second by Mr. Murphy. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, board. Next, we're seeking your approval on a contract for portables at Jesse Clark Middle School. And again, Myron's available if you have any questions.
So I think the theme is that our middle schools may all need to be studied during the 2020-21 school year.
Madam Chair, I think you're right.
Is there any further discussion or questions for Myron at this time? If not, a recommendation is in order to approve the contract for Jesse Clark portable classrooms for 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for the Jesse Clark portable classrooms for 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Morris, a second by Mr. Love. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, board. Next, we are seeking your approval on taking the next steps to amend our current district facility plan. At this time, I'd like to ask our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Myron Thompson, once again to share any additional details.
Two primary items that we were looking at for this particular amendment, the girls K-8 STEM program, getting that added to our district facility plan as a need, and then the consolidation of our two CTE programs at both South Side and East Side. When we turned this into the Department of Education, they made some changes in addition to that you should see on the plan there marked up. I don't know what work that's going to leave for our facility plan that's going to start anew this school year or this fiscal year in 2020-21. But we will be starting a new committee to develop the next 4-year plan. But this should close out this particular plan for these two specific agenda items that we have before you tonight.
Are there any further questions? All right, this one's a long one, so bear with me. If there are no further questions, the recommendation is in order to approve 1, approve the recommendation from the Local Planning Committee, LPC, to amend the current 2017 District Facility Plan, DFP, per the amendment process described in Section 502 of 702 KAR 4180, the School Facilities Planning Manual. 2, established June 24th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom meeting, the public hearing in regards to the amended DFP. And 3, appoint Melinda Joseph Derson, AIA FCPS, Director of Facility Design and Construction, to serve as the hearing officer for the public hearing. The main reasons for the amended plan are to add 2 items listed below, but KDE did require that we make some additional updates, which include updating the enrollment numbers, striking through projects that were under construction, and moving the Child Development Center under discretionary items 5.6 from 1C15. Added under 1A6, Girls STEM for grades K through 8, new program and new construction, and added under 1B5 CTE merger for grades 9 through 12, combine Southside and Eastside Technical Centers into a new facility while removing items 1C13 and 1C14. Do I have a motion?
So
I
moved.
to approve the recommendation from the LPC to do all of those outlined items.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Love and a second by
No, that was Mr. Murphy. He made that motion.
by Mr. Murphy and a second by Mr. Love.
Sure.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
And Madam Chair, let me just, if I could have a point of personal privilege here, I just think that this is really a really great thing for our district. I mean, we have been looking at this whole issue with both South Side and East Side for a number of years. We have gone to other districts to understand it, doing some of our trips in terms of Leadership Lexington. We've had an opportunity to see how having a joint program, not just kind of separated, can really just kind of help. And I think for our district, when you think about manufacturing and some of the other types of different areas that these particular schools will focus on, it really will help us to put more strength behind this career readiness, career and or college when we talk about it, but from the career perspective where our students can actually come out and automatically through the certifications be really employable and be employable with some really great paying jobs. So this is, I think, a really, really good step for us. And then in the area of STEM, I mean, that's another thing too, to be able to focus in those areas. So again, I just want to commend the district for the work so far in getting us to this particular point. But I think this is going to be a really, really good step for our district as we go forward. Thank you.
I agree. All right.
All
So,
right.
yes.
Now let you continue, Madam Chair.
No, I think you can. I think we are ready to move on.
All right. So our last action item tonight was the construction of a new building for Tates Creek High School, one step closer by the district's recommendation of awarding the bid to D.W. Wilburn Incorporated. And Myron's here if you have any questions. And I have previously sent you the document. So,
Are there any questions for the staff at this time?
I know you've said this before, but can you remind me when the finish date, the projected finish date will be?
Great question.
August of 2022.
Thank you.
There are no further questions. A recommendation is in order to accept the base bid with alternatives 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, and 14 as submitted by D.W. Wilburn. Approve the interim contract in the amount of $2,500,000 and the proposed contract in the amount of $70,971,000 and approve a revision to the BG1 project application for a total of $84,570,295.16 for the new construction of Tates Creek High School, subject to the approval of the Kentucky Department of Education District Facilities Branch per the provisions of 702 KAR 4160.
Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we accept the base bid with the alternatives. You want to read all this? Or can I just say what everything is read?
You're good. Thank you.
Use Tyler's language. Use Tyler's language.
And and everything that you previously stated.
The above outlined.
All right. So we have a motion by Mr. Love, and we have a second by Mr. Murphy. So any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. This is exciting for our community.
It was worth reading it if I had to do it all.
All right. Well, my battery is dying, so I don't want to run and get a new one. So let's get through the last couple items.
You got it, Madam Chair. Our next informational item is related to changing the grading scale at Henry Clay High School, which you will be asked to consider at our action meeting on the 22nd. With us this evening to share information about this matter is Henry Clay High School Principal Paul Little.
I've been just finished cooking supper for my kids there, man. I've been watching all this. This is a meeting. really the main two reasons that we make this change is to get our students on the equal playing field with a lot of other schools across the state. Primarily in getting awarded keys money for a 90 or a 91, getting the A, the money awarded for an A instead of a B. And also, we have a lot of students taking dual credit classes, and that grading scale, 90 to 100, 80 to 90, is also used in most of the schools, well, practically all of the schools that our students take dual credit classes with. So that's a big two. If one of our students currently had a 90% in all 6 classes, they would be missing out on $1,000 a year for making the 90 instead. That would be considered a B with us instead of an A at other schools. So that adds up over 4 years' time. And it's like I say, we still want to have more of a consistent grading scale for the students that are taking dual credit. Those are the main 2 reasons. There is, the last consideration is failure rate. We do have some students that struggle, and we have a lot of student athletes that work really hard, and we don't want them to miss out on NCAA eligibility likewise, because we know that hard work is going to pay off for these students. Just because a kid might struggle with some academics doesn't mean they're not going to be a productive citizen, and I don't want to block them in any way from getting to go to college.
That's right, Paul. So, board, any questions for Principal Little at this time?
No, I'll just say I think it makes sense. I mean, it's what most high schools do in the Commonwealth anyway, especially with the point about keys money. So to me, in fact, part of me was surprised that it hadn't been changed sooner. So I certainly understand.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing no other questions, I want to thank you, Paul. Thank you, board. And you'll be asked to consider this for vote again at the action meeting on the 22nd. Thanks, big guy.
Hey, thank you. Good to see you, Steve.
Thank you.
Y'all stay safe.
Also on tonight's agenda for your information is the proposed pay date schedule for the 2020-2021 contract year. This is fairly routine matter that the board votes on each year. But Finance Director Rodney Jackson is available this evening if you have any questions. All right. Seeing no questions, on the 22nd, we will also ask you to vote on the Fayette County Public Schools Statement of Insurances for the 2020-2021 school year. Again, this is a routine matter on the action that the board is required to take each year. And our Budget Director, Jelaine Mullins, is available if you have any questions.
Yes, ma'am. You said this is a routine matter. We asked you to approve the assurances every year. It's something that Katie requires us to do for us to get federal reimbursement from our grants each year. And we have been working with all of our federal budget managers and other budget managers in the district to ensure that we're in compliance. So I'll take any questions that you have at this time, but this is something that we do every year.
All right. Seeing no questions, thank you, Jelaine. The agenda for the 22nd also includes several informational items, including the placeholder for the school activity funds report, the placeholder for the monthly financial report, personnel changes for June, the budget transfer report, and the position control document. And before I turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, I would just encourage folks, if you haven't already, to get your COVID-19 test. I got my COVID-19 test today and got a call that said, no, got a call. They forgot to tell me you got to quarantine after you get the test. That's you gotta, until you get the results back. But I encourage everyone to get the COVID-19 test. And it's not as invasive as the previous test, right? This is more like a test as if you had strep throat. So, Les, yes.
I'm asking, what location did you use?
UK.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
All right. Are there any additional board requests at this time? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the FAIT. Oh, wait, Ms. Morris has a
comment for Superintendent Cock.
Yes.
We had a parent reach out to me asking us to recognize her son who has went through his entire school career with 0 absences. I didn't know if maybe that could be something that could be included in the video. That would be something for us to highlight. But if you'd like that information, just reach out to me and I'll send it to you.
Fantastic. And if you could forward it to me, as well as Steve Hill and Lisa Deffendahl, to look and see what the practices are here for recognizing perfect attendance, right? You talk about perfect attendance during the entire school career, including, K through 12, if you will. And board member Love.
No, I just said, wow, that's it.
I didn't have that. I can tell you, I shrugged out in kindergarten. Head Start, I shrugged out. And Head Start, I missed a day. I'm sure I did. Can't remember, but I'm sure that I did with my behavior and attitude. It was Head Start. But that's awesome. That's quite an accomplishment. And generally, as you know, Board Member Morris, who would do those recognitions, obviously, that we weren't meeting under these conditions because of the pandemic, face-to-face in our auditorium. So we'll look and see and try to do something if it's not at the district, certainly at the school level, at the high school, to kind of acknowledge and recognize the student. Because you can't be successful if you don't show up. And this student showed up each and every day since kindergarten through 12th grade, and that's commendable.
And while board chair is waiting for her phone to kind of continue to hold on.
Oh, right? Yes, that's true.
I did want to add one thing, though. I know we all had some questions about the EBT cards and stuff, and I know that they hit families today. Like, families got them in the mail today, and I think a lot more families got them automatically than they thought they were going to get them automatically. Because I know there was a lot of question about how to apply, but it seems that it is working its way out. But if we have additional questions, and I really commend the staff for really getting that information out. I know Ms. Morris and I were both kind of tearing up Mr. Clark's email and phone, trying to get the answers to the questions. But there was a lot of confusion, and not from us. I think we really took the lead of saying, even though this isn't our thing, like, we're going to make sure you know how to get it, and we're going to make sure our families have this, and it's a great resource for them. So yes, thank you to everybody.
And one thing I just want to ask a question, that is regarding retirees and with our retirees. And I know, of course, sometimes the retiree celebration, is that going to be like a virtual recognition that we're doing this year, since we can't do the face-to-face?
That's a great question. And Jessica's still here. Partner, you still here? You want to jump in? Okay.
I mean, we do usually co-sponsor that event. But when I talked to Heidi about it, the only thing I knew is that we just weren't doing it.
Okay.
And so, I will say, you all have, though, Jessica, gone around. I've seen you've gone around and delivered some things to your members who are retiring, which I think is
we've been doing that. Yeah.
Exactly, and commendable. And so thank you, partner. And Tyler, thank you for recognizing that effort. I will say to the EBT, it was, and I want to thank Board Member Morris and obviously our board chair for helping us get the information back out to families again. Because when we sent it the last week of May, that wasn't a time that was top of mind for them. It was that somehow that June 1st date, and then it became top of mind, and we already sent the information out. And so again, that's how we're here. That's how we work together, and that's why we just continuously try to get the most accurate information to our families at a time when it's top of mind for them. All right, did the battery go out? Did the battery go out?
In that case, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Shelley, is there anything we can do?
Well, I think if it weren't the board chair, I'm texting her.
She's asked us to go ahead and adjourn without her if we can.
Okay, you want to make a motion to appoint someone temporary board chair for the purpose of adjourning?
I'll make a motion to appoint Board Member Love as temporary.
I second.
All right, can you say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. As board chair, I'll now move for adjournment. All in favor?
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and probably second that we adjourn our June, what's this, 7th meeting? All right, 8th meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Hold on. A little premature. I apologize. I think there's one item I've been texted about was the finance court.
Okay.
So we need to, so John, I don't see it. It's item, you said 14?
I-4.
I-4. Okay, I'll let you speak to it. Come on, let's go.
Okay, sorry. It's just basically, hold on, let me get my, okay. Finance Corp will meet on at 5:50 p.m. right before the regular board meeting on June 22nd. And at the regular board meeting on June 22nd, we will basically ask you to approve the issuance of the bond debt related to the Tates Creek High School project. That's all. And what's in your packet is a lot of the documents. They're templates, if you will. They don't have dollar amounts in them tonight, but they will, obviously, when we come back on the 22nd. They're related to the Tates Creek project. But that's all. I didn't know if there were any questions. We have our partners with Baird, our bond and our bond counsel with our financial advisors, Baird, and our bond counsel members are here with us too. Charlie Musson with Reuben Hayes and David Smith with Stoll Keene and Ogden. So just want to make sure we didn't skip it over. That's all.
That's correct. Thanks for making me aware of that. That's important. So once again, if there are any questions about that, again, related to the Tates Creek High School project. All right, see no questions. And I see our Madam Chair's back, so we'll let you proceed with the adjournment.
So I apologize. I made it right there, but too short. All right. At this time, if there's no further board requests or discussions, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Love. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We are adjourned.